Hello, this is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer.
Welcome home.
Soar into tower. We are ready for takeoff.
Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey, it's Amy from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey Clubbers, it's Scott from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, it's Kathleen from DVC Clubhouse.
Welcome aboard. It's Phil from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Debrief podcast brought to you by DVC Clubhouse. This is Amy, and I'm joined again this week by Phil. Just Phil.
Why do you say it like that? You seem disappointed.
I'm just letting them know what to expect.
Yeah, but it's the way you say it, okay? As I try to teach my kids, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Instead of saying, and I'm joined this week by Phil. Just Phil.
Okay.
I'm joined by
Sorry.
Just Phil.
I'm joined by Phil, everyone. Give it up for Phil.
I am inserting fanfare music here, guaranteed.
Oh, speaking about inserting, you let a certain phrase slide on the podcast that we did, just the two of us, when it was just me and Just Phil again, when you were describing
You know what?
how
I
hot you
actually
were.
know exactly what you're talking about. So I had such a tough time editing that podcast that by the time I was done, I think I forgot to go back and fairy horn that. We were sitting here just bashing on Disney's technological issues and how Walt didn't sound right. He didn't look right. And we both had storms that night. It took me hours to recover that audio into something that was playable. It was brutal. I can actually go back and fix that and re-upload. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. I thought it was going to be just the two of us, a half-hour episode. I'm going to be done producing this in like an hour or two. It won't be a problem. Untold hours trying to recover the audio from that episode.
Yeah, well, I realized when none of what I had said in that stretch of time when we thought I might have been gone, there was none of that. So I was like, yep, that was just several minutes of me talking into the void, never to be heard again.
I kind of thought that was going to happen, and I was hopeful that your end had caught it, but it was just so choppy and broken. I had to get rid of that. I had to mess with the amplitude on mine. Something went wonky in the storms with my system that it knocked my professional mic offline. So it sounded like I was shouting through a paper towel tube down a hallway towards the computer speakers. It was terrible.
Well, so because of that, everyone got to hear a very vivid description of how hot you were.
There's a distinct possibility by the time you hear this episode, if you go back to listen, I will have altered that because I can just clip that and re-upload.
Well, I mean, this is kind of an appropriate conversation for what we're going to talk about tonight. We're talking about the things that we listen to. You know, you're listening to the podcast, the editing of the podcast. We're going to talk today about what we listen to at Disney World. You know, the music that fills our ears when we walk into the park, when we watch shows, things that we love, things that we miss, things that we don't love. And the reason why I suggested we talk about this is because the new Starlight Nighttime Parade at Magic Kingdom debuted last week. And a lot of the feedback, including feedback from myself, because I watched a couple of clips on the internet of that parade, and everyone kind of feels the same way. I mean, visually, it looks stunning. The floats look absolutely amazing, and it's very cool, especially for for people who have not experienced a nighttime parade at the Magic Kingdom, because it's been quite a while since
Right.
there's
That's
been
like
a
this
nighttime
whole
parade.
generation, it seems like at this point,
Yeah.
right?
So to see all of the lights turn off on Main Street USA and have this lit up parade come down the street, I think is still pretty impressive. The thing that I found a little disappointing and underwhelming was the music that accompanied these floats. And it just felt very, I don't know, it was very mediocre for me. It didn't really evoke any sort of emotion. And all of my favorite shows at Disney over the past however long I've been going, it's 30 years at this point, I guess. The music is what really, really kind of is like the bow on all of the shows that just really makes it something that's memorable. For me, I think music is what is really one of like the key components of nostalgia. And so Starlight just it didn't really hit any of that for me, and it made me start thinking about the nighttime shows, daytime shows, parades that from the past or even present that what they sound like, and the music that accompanied those that really made me fall in love with those things. And I know, Phil, you and I mean, anybody who's listened to this podcast at all or has ever had a conversation with either of us about
Has
things that we
any
love at
interaction
Disney.
with us whatsoever walked within 25 feet while we were talking, knows anything about us, knows this one fact.
Yes, we both love Illuminations.
And desperately miss Illuminations. Gosh, it's, you know what? I'll just say it right now. I have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of music and a lot of shows. I honestly think that was my top. I would put it above even the Main Street shows that I loved. There was just something about Illuminations. I've got to list it as my all-time number one. So yeah, I'm heartbroken.
Yeah, for me, Illuminations and also Tapestry of Nations, to me, I kind of like see them as like a combo deal.
They are the same album. So if you actually do what I did and go and find the original album on eBay and rip the music off of it for digital, they do all come on the same album. So I would consider them all part of the same score, so to speak.
Well, I owned that CD. It was the Millennium Celebration CD, and I used to listen to it in my car. Then, when you were able to upload music onto an iPod, my first iPod ever, I would listen on the train going into work to the Illuminations and Tapestry of Nations soundtracks, and that to me is the pinnacle of Walt Disney Imagineering music scoring that will probably go down as unbeatable for me in terms of nostalgia, in terms of emotion, in terms of storytelling.
Messaging. Someone actually said on the page the other day that all world leaders should be required to sit down and watch the original Illuminations and Tapestry of Nations show, and we would be that much closer to world peace. The messaging and the way they conveyed that message in Illuminations was absolutely uniting and perfect.
And, they would, I don't even know at this point if, so much of what technology allows musicians to do. I mean, it's impressive. I watch Emma, who is a musician, and she'll record her vocals here, and somebody else is recording their, guitar track, and somebody else is recording something else, and then they can just like upload it all to a computer, and then they have a song. And I mean, it certainly makes music production easier. But that with Illuminations, they had a live orchestra in a room, and they were recording this live orchestra playing this. This score that was, it was like, it was like watching your favorite movie. Like when you think about Star Wars or Indiana Jones, and you think about the music and how iconic it is. That's what Illuminations is for me. In like the lore of Disney original scores for their shows, Illuminations is like Star Wars and Indiana Jones.
And it's funny. I've said this before, and I don't think that people actively understand it as they're in the middle of it. It's what Disney, the Disney company, did so well for so many years. Theming is not just a great ride. Theming is not just one sightline. Disney's theming for so long was about the smells that were piped into certain areas of the park, be it Main Street, be it the confectionery, be it the different resorts. They all have their unique smells. It's the colors, it's the sight lines, it's the kinetic energy, it's the static energy. It's the music that's playing in the background. So you mentioned putting that music on your iPod. And at the beginning of the show, you had said the music from all the shows. And I was going to step in and say the same thing. If you look at my music list and the things that we play at night when the kids are going to bed, I have the Soarin' line cue. I have the 100th anniversary Esplanade. I have the Epcot entrance loop, the original and the current one. I have the new Epcot anthem. I have Epcot Inventions. I have the Millennium Celebration. In addition to that, we have D Park Radio, the Subsonic app, the Sorcerer Radio app, and those are playing background loops from Adventureland, background loops from Futureland, background loops from, Future World, background loops from Tomorrowland, background loops from the Boardwalk. There's just endless loops that are playing all the time. We don't just listen to that music in the park. You want to spark being back in the park in your imagination and have that at-home feeling, you can find this music anywhere. Just like some people like to play the original Day at Disney that would always pop up on Channel 1. There are YouTube loops that go hours of that. There are people that keep it on their big screen TVs. Even that loop we have as an audio track to listen to because there was always a fantastic classical background loop to that. Music just interspaces itself in every experience at Disney. And you look at even silly stuff. Like I just pulled up the Move It, Shake It, Mouse Could Dance It street party. It was fun on Main Street during that afternoon parade. It got people moving. As you're walking through the Polynesian at Christmas, my kids are constantly singing about 5 big fat pigs. It's part of every single experience there. So when we are greeted with a substandard show, Epcot Forever, we are just hugely disappointed because we're used to Illuminations, we're used to Wishes, we're used to Happily Ever After, we're used to these shows that were so iconic. So I had said before it started that even Luminous, I like Luminous. I don't think Luminous is a bad show. And I think they tried really hard after that disaster that was Epcot Forever and especially Harmonious. But they just didn't achieve that level, that pinnacle you spoke to about Illuminations. It's not there. It doesn't have the same depth. It doesn't have the same feeling. And they tried to carry the same message, but it felt kind of mid. It just fell short. And maybe partly that's us and the nostalgia we hold, but I think I can objectively, as I look around this room, I have a full piano. I have 1, 2, 3 guitars. I have a violin. I have a ukulele. Upstairs, there's a trumpet, there's a saxophone. We're a musical family. So I think I can sit back and objectively talk about music and how it feels and how it's composed and what it means. And I just haven't found the current offerings to live up to some of the things we've had in the past. And I say that not super salty because I was not going to like Happily Ever After. I was determined not to like Happily Ever After because I was heartbroken that they took the old show away. I missed the nighttime entertainment. I missed Wishes, and you were not going to get me with Happily Ever After. And boy, did they get that one right. So for those that think I'm a hater, I don't hate everything. I don't hate everything new. I think Happily Ever After hit it out of the park. But some of the new stuff they're coming up with the new parade and with Harmonious and with Luminous, they've lost touch with something. And I don't know what it is, but I think as a longtime fan, there's been some swings and misses. There's been a couple of singles, but they haven't had a home run in a while.
I think that Luminous, if Illuminations never existed, I would be very happy with Luminous because,
Agreed.
and I think Luminous is a far cry better than Harmonious. And
Also agreed.
the sad part about Harmonious is that I do think that the soundtrack was good and fun. It just was not the right choice for the end of the night show at Epcot. That would have been great for a daytime show that was set to some parade or something where, or a stage show. But the end of the night is supposed to be this kind of kiss goodnight. You're leaving the park and you're supposed to be leaving with this feeling of that they are connected, like they are reaching out and connecting to you in an intimate way, speaking to your heart, speaking to nostalgia, speaking to the connections that you have with the people who you are on your vacation with. And like Harmonious just did not do that. I think Luminous definitely does a better job of that, but in comparison to Illuminations, it still falls short. So I think that Luminous, while better than Harmonious, it just does not live up to what Illuminations was. And when you think about you're walking out, I mean, the exit song after Illuminations, kind of like the epilogue to Illuminations, was The Promise. Such a beautiful emotional song. It was actually the last song, ironically, that I danced to at my wedding, called The Promise, about we'll go on.
No comment.
That
Awkward.
I mean, that didn't really that prophecy did not come true, but the sentiment that that song spoke to me in such a deep emotional way that I wanted it to be the last song at my wedding. That speaks to what I mean about how the end of the night was always reserved for this moment where you are like reflecting on everything that really matters, right? Like you went through the park day, you stood in the long lines, you stood in the heat, you probably had some frustrating moments, but you were doing it with people that you love. And the end of the night is a moment for you to kind of step away from the craziness of all that and reconnect with what really matters. And it's, the people, and the feel. We talk about it all the time on the podcast, the feels. Like, it is a moment for you to step into the feels and really appreciate exactly, what you are getting to experience and the people you're getting to experience it with. And so, I think that is something that, and having just spent some time at Disneyland where I watched most of their nighttime shows on this trip. And if I didn't watch, I didn't watch Phantasmic or World of Colors on this trip, but I have on past trips. And Disneyland's got it right. I mean, Disneyland had those moments
I was
where
going
I
to
was
actually bring that up.
So, I had very high hopes for Starlight because I just watched Paint the Night at Disneyland, and I got like the chills and I got choked up, and the music got me, and seeing all of these floats lit up and everyone sitting either on the ground, or like all of these kids looking up at these giant floats, and like the light is reflecting back on their faces, so you can see the wonder in their eyes. I mean, they nailed it, and their fireworks show nailed it. And then they had this tapestry of happiness on projection on It's a Small World, which was just absolutely incredible. So, I mean, they got it right at Disneyland. So, I feel like we had a very, very good run at Disney World where, we simultaneously had Wishes at the Magic Kingdom, which to me is also at the top of my list. I mean, I like Happily Ever After a lot, but it doesn't, it is, Wishes is still my number one.
It's a real close toss up for me, and I have a hard time deciding between the two. And I think, objectively speaking, I think they're even. I think they're neck and neck. I think the deciding factor between the two is where you've got more memories and nostalgia, because I have some memories and nostalgia when Luke was very, very, very young with Wishes, but I have more memories and nostalgia with both kids under Happily Ever After. So Happily Ever After gets the edge, but gosh, those two are close.
For me, it comes down to the music again. And for me, with the Wishes soundtrack is a much more kind of mushy, pull at your heartstrings. You've got the children's chorus singing. You have, just the song is a much more like kind of like softer melodic tune, whereas Happily Ever After is kind of a banger. You know what I mean? It's like that song. It's an exciting song. Whereas again, like for me, my preference at the end of the night is to have this like pull at your heartstring tender moment.
It's funny. I always say that Wishes told a story. Happily Ever After takes you on a journey. And that was kind of the defining factor for me, that they had different intents. Where Wishes wanted to give you those moments, that feeling of just culmination of the night to wrap up everything you had experienced that day. So you walked out after they told you this story, which is really what Disney was specializing in. And now you look at Happily Ever After and it takes you on a journey, the ups, the downs, you've got the heroes and you've got the villains, and the heroes come back. It's a very different feel. So I completely understand what you're saying about how one tugged at your heartstrings and one was really just kind of taking you along for the ride.
Well, and Wishes was narrated by Jiminy Cricket. So you've got that narration, which is just, also is going to tug at your heartstrings. So Wishes for me was another perfect ending to a park day that just made me feel all in my feels. Now, Happily Ever After does do that too, but it's a much more kind of vibrant feeling versus Wishes was a much more kind of sentimental feeling.
Well, maybe that's Illuminations versus what they went to with Harmonious as well. And why Luminous brings it back is it's got that same feel, that same vibe. And before everyone says I just don't like IP, I want to give a shout out to Wondrous Journeys in Disneyland. That is full of IP, just like Happily Ever After. You want to talk about one that just tells a story remarkably with outtakes and quotes, and you've got the projections and you've got the fireworks, and then it goes into a pop song at the end with everyone dancing around. They nailed it with IP in both of those. I think when they use IP to truly tell a story and take you along for the ride, they knock it out of the park. When they use IP just for the sake of IP, that's where it tends to fall apart. And I think that's the problem they had, especially with Epcot Forever and to some extent with Harmonious, is they just tried to cram it in too hard.
Well, what was the name of that show that lasted for a second at Magic Kingdom after Happily Ever After? I mean, it's like the fireworks show that's Enchantment. Is that what it was
Yes,
called?
Enchantment. And they at least said from the very beginning, this is just a holdover for the new show. But it was the same thing. Like, let's just take what we've got and throw it together and throw some sparkly stuff in the sky and call it a night.
Right. And they basically just took songs from shows that like had never been used before in a nighttime show and just kind of strung them together in a way that didn't really make sense. And it didn't tug on anyone's heartstrings. People just weren't feeling emotionally connected to it. And, I think that I don't know who's making the decisions there, but do they not realize that the music is really the thing? That's the thing that's gonna be stuck in people's heads. Something that we can take with us. Like I said, I had it on my iPod. I listened to it in my car. I listened to it on my commute. You listen to it with your kids at bedtime. The music is the thing that we can take with us once we've left. And it's the thing that when we close our eyes and, put our headphones on and we listen to it, we can be transported back to that moment where where I saw Allie sitting on my dad's shoulders when she was 2 years old watching Illuminations. It's you being able to see Luke watching Wishes. It's
Yeah, I actually, my Illuminations memory is exactly the same. Mackenzie was a baby and Emily took her back to Yacht Club for the night she was asleep. And I can distinctly remember standing on that bridge between France and the UK with Luke on my shoulders, watching Illuminations, 2 years old, tears streaming down my face, and thinking it can never get better than this moment.
And that's the power of music. I mean, I'll never forget, to your point about it's just not the shows, it's like the entire experience when you're in the parks or at the resorts. I'll never forget going to the boardwalk after, for my first visit after the park had reopened after the COVID closure and being at the boardwalk and there was no music playing on the boardwalk. I don't know why. It took them a while to start playing that loop. I guess maybe they didn't want people stopping and congregating, so they figured turning off the music would be the way to get people to not sit. I don't know. But the entire ambiance of the boardwalk changed without that music playing because, that music, it's very, very tied into the entire atmosphere that they're creating. And without
Very
that like
distinctive and thematic.
without that like throwback 1920s, like jazzy feel, you are you just kind of felt like, oh, here I am sitting at Disney looking at this lake. You know, when you're there with the music on, you are being transported. The music transports you.
So, what else, now that we're on this subject, because it just sparked one in my mind as well, what else aside from the nighttime shows, what else do you think is just spot on for thematic background music for Disney? Because I've got a few that I think really just hit it home.
Well, before we move on to that, I just want to give a shout out to Fantasmic, because I think that the Fantasmic soundtrack is great. It is fun. It is
Bum, ba-da-dum,
all
bum,
of the
bum,
things.
bum, ba-da-dum, bum.
And you know, and this is actually kind of the opposite of what I was saying before about the heartstrings and ending on this kind of like tender moment. Fantasmic does leave on this like very kind of like jubilant, victorious kind of moment, but I don't know, it like works for Hollywood studios because it's you're kind of like watching this, you know, the story of like the protagonist and you know you've got Mickey there and he's goes through his journey and then he faces his fears and then he comes out and he's victorious and then like the music plays and you're just totally fired up and it's just so good. And you know, you witnessed it with me alone and then your family got to witness it, and Mackenzie
Oh, she
kindly
called you
reminded
out.
me yeah, that people could see me when I was singing and dancing along.
Fantasmic is an interesting one because I think it's arguably much cooler in Disneyland just because of where it's set up and how it's set up. But at the same time, I think it's a better fit in the amphitheater in Hollywood studios. So even though there's something very cool about watching it on Rivers of America, I think the theme of that song and the vibe of that show and the vibe of that show fit better at Hollywood studios. So they're equally cool, but it's kind of a weird juxtaposition there.
Yeah, and I mean, what's great about the one at Hollywood Studios is that you can actually sit down and watch it in like a theater, like you're literally watching a show in a theater versus trying to find a spot to stand along the rivers of America, you know. And if you don't buy a dining package to watch it, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
But so to go back to your question about what other areas or what other things are thematically just musically right on target. And gosh, I mean, I feel like there are so many, but one that comes to mind is the Wilderness Lodge. The music that plays at Wilderness Lodge has this like very kind of
Great Western
big,
epic feel to it.
yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, laying at the Boulder Ridge pool, you go into the bathroom and you feel like it's like the most triumphant bathroom experience you're ever gonna have because the
Like
music
Teddy
is
Roosevelt
just,
himself riding
right.
through what is soon to be the national parks.
Right. So I mean, I love the music at Wilderness Lodge, which also, I mean, that resort is just so amazing. Like, I kind of feel like that is. I mean, what I think Wilderness Lodge suffers from a little bit is in terms of being considered like one of the greatest Disney resorts is location because it is kind of set back and you have to take a boat to Magic Kingdom or a bus to everywhere else. But in terms of the design, the architecture, the theming, the music, everything that they did in that resort, I mean, that is like a master class in how to create a well-themed resort, a well-themed attraction. They 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 did it right there.
I would bring in, if I had to just come up with a few of my top for theme, I think the new Epcot entrance music is very good. I think the Epcot entrance music from maybe 15, 20 years ago was spot on because Epcot at the time had, I think, a more cohesive theme. So it made more sense. Wilderness Lodge was absolutely on my list. Walking through those covered walkways going back to Boulder Ridge with that epic Western music playing is really cool. I think if you pay attention to what the music is, going through the Soarin' queue, it's got the Rocketeer, it's got Apollo 13, it's got the American President, it's got Band of Brothers with the theme music when they're parachuting. there's some odd choices in there, like Father of the Bride, which one of my favorite movies. I'm not going to knock it, but I'm not really sure how it fits in the Soarin' music queue. But background music alone, I think the one that is better than all the others, and it's one of my favorites, and I wish I could come up with it, is the Jungle Cruise background music. That scratchy with the goofy announcements and the 1920s bandstand music playing in the background. I think as far as background music, whoever put that one together, they're the ones teaching the master class. It is just perfect to listen to as you're going through there.
Yeah, that I agree, and I mean, I think that all of like the kind of like classic attractions all have a musical element that make those attractions iconic. I mean, back in the day when you could get like a Walt Disney World soundtrack CD, you had Haunted Mansion, Pirates, Enchanted Tiki Room, It's a Small World, even the music for Space Mountain, like that was even on there.
So I'm actually going to tell you the Walt Disney World official album released in 2013, because yes, I have that on my playlist on my phone. So you've got Eddie Sato, All Aboard from the Main Street Station, Flitterin' from Main Street, The Tiki Room, Swiss Polka, Yo Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, The Bear Band Serenade. They have pulled the Splash Mountain medley from the digital album, but that was on there. Grim Grinning Ghosts, It's a Small World, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Be Our Guest, Little Mermaid medley, Circus Parade, Casey Jr., Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, Galactic Anthem from Stitch's Great Escape was on there. Spaceship Earth, how did we forget Spaceship Earth? The Energy Adventure medley, One Little Spark, and then they had Destiny from Mission Space, Test Track, The Seas with Nemo and Friends, Soarin', which is the Jerry Goldsmith Soarin' music, which, by the way, is incredible. And if you ever listen to the Rudy soundtrack, which Jerry Goldsmith also composed, it's the same music. Canada, You're a Lifetime Journey, Impressions to France, Golden Dream, Reflections of China, Three Caballeros, Twilight Zone, Throne Room, Indiana Jones, Light Motor Action. Remember when that was at Hollywood Studios? You've Got a Friend in Me, Hot Potato, It's Tough to Be a Bug, and the CTX theme from Dinosaur. That was the original Walt Disney World album.
Well, and the fact that they're actually able to make a soundtrack because of the musical element to every single one of those attractions, and music that is recognizable and nostalgic to everybody. I mean, I'm trying to think about some of the more recent attractions. I mean, clearly, the Guardians, music is a big part of that, but that's not music that they created specifically for that attraction. That was already existing music.
And it's more of a voiceover in the line than it is music. You're watching screens of people speaking, which is entertaining, but it's not musical.
Yeah. I mean, and I can't even I guess Remy, you have the music from Ratatouille, which is pretty iconic. And I mean, when you walk through France and you hear that kind of that's a song that kind of brings me back to Epcot, being at Disney. And but I don't know that I've ridden Tron enough to know is there actual music or is that just
There's
like sound
some
effects?
background music, but it's completely overdone by the announcement that comes on every minute and a half.
Yeah.
That just drives me out of my mind. We now refuse to go on that ride without paying our way through, not just because of the wait, but because I despise that nonstop announcement overhead. I just take my $65 and pipe down.
But there used to be this game. It was called the Disney Racing game, I think it was called. It was like for Nintendo, and it was you could play. It was like a 2-player game. You could race against people, and you would ride through the attractions, and it would be accompanied by the music. And it was such an addictive ride because such an addictive game because, first of all, you're competing against somebody you want to win, but it's set to this music that you love and is so nostalgic and iconic. And I sat my brother-in-law and I used to sit for hours and just play that game because he's also like a big Disney fan. He did the Disney college program when he was in college. And it's really, the music of that game is what really sold it for us. And I think that that's something that I hope, what the thing that gives me hope is having been at Disneyland, seeing that that's still true to like the core of how they're creating experiences. There've just been a lot of misses at Disney World in the past few years, but I've got to believe that it's got to improve at some point. I mean, I think they have to listen to feedback. They need to see that what we all really want, what we love, and my kids have been going to Disney World since they were babies. They are now 20 and almost 18 years old, and their nostalgia is no different than mine. They love the same things. They want to, they have the things that they did as kids that they want to go back and see. And I think that that's another area where like the music really is like that unifying kind of factor that brings people together and makes us have the same experience, like a shared experience. So I mean, there's plenty of nostalgia to be had at Disney World right now. I'm not saying that they've completely abandoned it and you're walking through Disney and there's like no good music because it's all around you. Like the entire experience is immersive. But with I had such high hopes with Starlight. We were all disappointed by Enchantment. We were mainly all of us disappointed by Harmonious. We're all feeling a little bit better about Luminous. But I just hope that future projects that they really kind of take a look back at that late 90s, early 2000s. The vibe that they had going there is what we're all yearning for, right? We're all yearning for that level of awe and amazement when they come out with something new.
And if Walt Disney World doesn't do that, it's becoming increasingly apparent that all of us old school fans are just becoming Disneyland people.
Well, I mean, like I said last week, I mean, the weather in Orlando is rough. So the the weather at Disneyland will be much friendlier to an aging an aging woman. So I could see myself happily making Disneyland my park.
Yeah, thoughts crossed our mind as well.
And the ease of getting around, as a retiree, I don't want to have to take a boat to a monorail to a Skyliner. I can just walk from my room to wherever I want to go in
Right, or walk
75
between
degrees.
parks in
Yeah.
a minute and a half versus having to come out of Magic Kingdom, go over to the monorail station, take the monorail station over to the TTC to grab the next monorail, to then walk through Epcot, to then hop on a Skyliner, to then get over to Hollywood Studios. Oh my gosh.
I don't know that anyone who is like a Disneyland person who's never been to Disney World, if they understand really and truly what it's like when you need to get from point A to point B and you have a schedule to keep. I mean, you are rushing, running, moving as fast as you can to try to get onto the next, like running for a bus. Like nobody at Disneyland understands what it is like to have to run someplace. Everyone's just taking their time. It's like a much more chill vibe. Disney World is kind of intense that way.
Yeah, you need a chart, a graph, easels, a flow chart. It's brutal trying to figure out how you're going to get from A to B sometimes.
Right. Well, hopefully our next episode, Kathleen and Scott will be joining us and we'll be able to have a more in-depth conversation about Disneyland since they will have just returned and all four of us can share our thoughts about it since we will have all been there the next time we talk.
The way the scheduling works out, if we record it when we think we're going to record it, I may actually post that one before I post this one. So they may actually hear it sooner than this.
All right. Well, if that is the case,
It's all at the whim of the producer, Amy.
Yeah. Well, I'm just letting people know. Check last week's episode if you want to hear about Disneyland. So,
all right. Well, I think that wraps us up. That That's 40 minutes, and I don't even think we dug as deep into that one as we are very capable of doing.
I agree.
All right, guys. Well, thank you as always for listening. If you could head over to Apple Podcasts, give us a like, a 5-star review. We would appreciate it. Amy?
And if you'd like to join our Facebook group, you can find us over there at DVC Clubhouse. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And until next time, we'll DVC you real soon.
See you guys.
And so our journey comes to an end.
Oh, no, please, can't we go back to page 1 and do it all over again?
Started this thing together, and that's how we'll finish it.
Because that, my friends, is where the magic lives.
Happily ever